Hello and welcome. It's Tuesday and it's 3:33 p.m. right now for me in Pacific time. I love it. Today for What's Alive, we're going to be talking about thriving by design. And if you're in some of our groups, then you probably noticed that we just started talking about it. We have a pop-up masterclass coming on Thursday, and that'll be at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and 5 p.m.
And remember, if you live in Europe,
yes.
It's not 6 hours different for European standard, European CET. If you're in Paris or in Stockholm or in Madrid, it's not 6 hours different from our Eastern time. It's actually 5 hours. So come 1 hour earlier than you would usually do when you converted from the US time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh, daylight saving. We should just not have any daylight savings. It just confuses things all around the world. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit about the concept of thriving by design. I guess when we first are introduced to these systems, we think in the beginning, or at least I did, is that there's something that I need to learn about myself that I don't already know, and I'm not being myself, so there's something I need to correct. And I think that what a lot of us have found, that the majority of what we're learning in human design and Gene Keys, specifically human design, is that we're already kind of being ourselves. And it's just, can you accept and embrace and love yourself for who you are in your original design, instead of trying to be something for somebody else or fit yourself into a mold. So thriving by design is simply like living out the purest expression of your design. And to do that, it's kind of a deep dive into your energy, into your centers, into, your design, to see how does the energy flow. And everybody has this differentiation and uniqueness about them. And I think it's about aligning with that. What would you say, Bella?
Yeah, I love the approach that we have been speaking about lately, about starting not from the theory, but starting from the body and what's already there. And I mean, that's when we look at the hexagram structure that we have been using a lot in Unlock Your Design. It's like, it's always starting with the physicality, it's always starting with the foundation. So for me, this way of not just going into something through the theory of it and then feel like trying to make the theory meet the embodiment, but actually kind of starting with what is already there and how it feels. I'm excited to do that. And I think both you and I, we are feeling that we go from having, somehow taught or shared those systems to now it's more about the embodiment, and then those systems are just tools with other systems. Like we are speaking right now in our Business by Design course, like how much do we bring in astrology? Like, does that, are we going into the advanced astrology and even use that as tools, or what is exactly our toolbox? And at the end of the day, what we're doing, it is all about embodiment and embodying the true self. Like, that's what we care about. And I think we are becoming less dependent on the systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how the centers in human design kind of line up to those chakras in a way. I mean, we have 9 centers in human design, but the majority of them correlate with a chakra. And if you've seen our 64 doors project with our 64 different archetypes, you'll know that we're bridging different systems. So Gene Keys, human design, astrology, I Ching. And when we look at the human design aspect of it, those archetypes are going to live in a center. So each of the 64 archetypes have their home and they live in a center, and we're going to call these centers hubs. So within the root hub, we have the magician, which is the 60, we have the 54, which we call the achiever. And then we have a bunch of other archetypes that live there as well. And they're going to express and be influenced by the theme of stability and foundation, because they live in the center. They can't help but bring that to life through their unique expression. So each of these gates has a different expression of foundation and stability, and offering that pressure and that fuel to other centers. And the root moves to the solar plexus, the root moves to the spleen, and the root moves to the sacral. And each of those are going to have different expressions, because that energy is pushing towards something. It's meeting another center. And so it has a different purpose. And it's cool to be able to look at these archetypes in a way that they're communing together and they share a common thread. And we're going to explore that together. And the masterclass that we're doing on Thursday has a lot to do with an introduction to these centers from a different viewpoint, and like what the theme of each of these centers are. Boys, go outside. Go outside. I'm putting on my skates. Oh, so yeah.
I'm always excited about the master classes, because that's when we feel like the field of other people. I remember when we did the relationship series, and we were like, let's do this in a way so that you don't need any prior experience. And we didn't say this is line one. We spoke about the anchor in relationships and the win-win relationships. That was the first line, but we didn't say that. We did 6 days, and at the end, people kind of saw through it and knew what it was. So we did start to kind of use that language. But already then, and this is, I think it's almost 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, that was already important for us to not get stuck in the language, to not exclude the people that still aren't proficient with the language. And this is what we have noticed. We started to have questions in the Human Design and Gene Key group that is now growing to, I think we're almost 7,000 people in that group. We started to ask people that come into the group, what is your level of proficiency with Gene Keys and Human Design? And more than 90% says it's a 1 on a scale from 1 to 5. And that means that the way that Ashley and I speak in code, many of you aren't even understanding that. And we don't want to exclude people and just speak to the few that have already been with this for a long time. That's not going to change the world. And maybe that's a little bit ambitious to say that we're going to change the world, but I believe when we can speak in a language that everybody understands and be inclusive, that's when there can be an impact. And that's what I'm aiming towards. And I'm excited for all these people. We don't see 7,000 people in our courses. There are just so many people discovering these systems, and I see that every day, both in Gene Keys and Human Design. Probably Gene Keys, I don't know, I think both systems are still growing, and I think both systems are still super alive.
Yeah, with the amount of people that are joining every day for the Gene Keys and Human Design group, and it was not a strategic thing to name it that. I mean, it ended up being really beneficial, because anybody searching for Human Design or Gene Keys found the group, and that's why we're getting a lot of new people. But the amount of new people that are coming in is just showing how much the world is ready for this, and how a lot of us that were in it thinking that we were, in it on a high or something, we're not. We were actually the ones in the beginning, and as we're moving towards 2027, it's going to be even more important for us to align back to our original design, to be able to know how to thrive by design individually, be in our sovereignty, and be able to be independent and then interdependent instead of codependent. In codependency, we end up becoming homogenized. We end up becoming something for someone else, because the trade is so heavy that we sacrifice and compromise ourselves for that trade, whatever that trade is. And so when we can resource and leverage what we have already inside of us, we feel more secure, we feel more grounded, we feel that we can trust ourselves. And trust was something that also came up in our Portals of Deconditioning call today too. It's do you trust yourself? Can you trust others? If you can't trust others, how strong are you in your ability to trust yourself? So we hope that in doing this masterclass and initiating people into this world in a different way, they're able to kind of have things click and start to explore what it is to live it out in the body. versus understanding these systems from a mind level.
Yeah, and smashing some of these, like people have misunderstandings about the body graph and the not self and the open centers, and what's the difference between the not self and the shadow, or if you don't have anything in a center, well then that the topic or the characteristic of that center doesn't apply to you. I'm very surprised that even with people that are in human design for a long time, or not in human design maybe, but in the groups of human design for a long time, there are misunderstandings of these things. And often when I go back to Richard Rudd's manual, living your design manual, or I go back to the books and things that I've studied, I always like learn something new. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the way to look at the G center. That's the way to understand the not self. So I feel like many times we kind of think we have it. When we go back to the basics, that's where we realize that there is still so much kind of on a felt level and experience level to understand and allow to sink in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing that we are doing with this is that, I mean, I wouldn't say that, I mean, integral human design is its own thing. And it's what Richard created with Werner in Austria. That is its own system in a way, but it really bridges human design with Gene Keys. And we are using this in our Portal of Deconditioning course, for example, for all the channels. So channels is when two harmonic 8 meet. So for example, the 38 from the root meeting the 28 in the splenic center, it's forming a channel. It's going to form a definition in the chart, because you're going to have both those centers defined if you have that. In this course, we're always going into what is the theme and the frequency band of the channel. And that's not something that we usually speak about in the Gene Keys, because we usually don't even speak about channels and harmonic gates. So when we bring in the integral human design, and we have those frequency bands for the channels, we have the frequency band for the circuitry, the different streams, the way the circuitry is named in integral human design, and also all the centers or the hubs, like we are naming them. All the centers have a frequency band too. So for me, that is going to be something that we haven't had a chance to really use a lot so far, Ashley, but that is there, and that is actually even in the Living Library if you go in and look. But to be able to explore, because one thing is to have 3 keywords, a frequency band that is there, but what does it really mean? So to be able to explore the integral human design together when it comes to the centers, and when it comes to like all these themes that are going from each center, because all the channels that are leaving that specific hub or center. So that's one thing. And then the third thing I feel is actually going back to the Hindu chakra system, or more in a modern way of saying it, those are energy centers in the body. And Ashley and I was on Sunday, we were working, or she was working more than I, but I was giving input with how to graphically show the centers. And when I needed like a vortex and I didn't know how to explain it. And like, I felt like, oh my God, now I'm giving you more work, Ashley. Like, why am I doing? But it was just something for me, those energy centers that are like spiral and vortexes. It was so important to show that, because it's not like a 2-dimensional flat thing. This is really an energy center that's there in you, and it can be blocked and feel like it's not moving. But really, it's about you kind of feeling that energy and be able to, to come back to all the parts of you where the energy wants to flow. So that's also what I feel. It's the felt sense of the chakras, the energy centers, the circulation between those different parts of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to explore this, and it is an exploration. It is an activation. It is an embodiment. Although inside the masterclass, we're not going to touch on the embodiment aspect of it. That's more so what we're going to start doing in the inner circle as we move into like the deeper dive into these hubs, as we call it. But we definitely want to explore with you, and there will be an activation and activity to do at the end that'll help you feel into one of the hubs as well. And on the masterclass on Thursday, we're also going to give you an opportunity to pick and select which archetype you want us to go into, because we're going to talk about the theme of the hub, and then we want to give some advice and illumination of the archetype and why it's living out that theme of the root, the sacral, the head, the ajna, whatever it is. And so there's going to be opportunities for you to pick which one. So if you have one in your chart and you're like, oh, I want them to talk about this, you can vote for it. You can pull it. We have a registration link for this, and it's going to be important for you to be inside the Zoom container, because that's where the voting is going to happen. That's where the questions are going to happen. And that's where you're kind of going to be in the, like, private energy of it. This is our container. This is our room. And it's a lot different being inside this container than it is kind of observing through Facebook or YouTube or wherever. So we do have that available. Not right now, honey. We do have that available for you to sign up so that you can get the Zoom link. Go away, Ben. Go.
I just want.
What do you want?
I want to switch this to Lukey's.
Okay, why don't you ask Dad?
Okay.
Yeah, go ask Dad. Sorry, mom life. They're feeling into their root. They're moving their body. And he was wearing red rollerblades when he came up to me. What do you want, root chakra? What do you want over here? I want to be challenged. The root chakra wants to be challenged, everyone. Yeah. So please register. We'd love to have you in this container. And we're super excited to talk about these hubs and the themes within.
I don't even know. Have we even decided if we are going to stream it to everybody? I don't know if we have. So
I don't know.
Is there even we don't even know if we are going to like put it out there. So I would say for now, yeah, do register, and then we'll speak and see if we are making it public or not.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, is there anything else that you feel is important for them to know about the master?
I mean, I feel I'm going to learn things that I haven't learned, and I've been in this for a while. So I would say, don't feel that you're too beginners or too advanced. This is not about levels. This is about feeling more of you in yourself, getting to know the parts of you, allowing the energy to move in a way that is aligned with you, and that it is a bridge. Even if it's foundational in a way when it comes to human design, it's going to use the integral human design. It's going to bridge over to the frequency bands and bring that whole overlay of the gene keys and the genius of the gene keys. So I'm excited to go into it this way. And I feel like it is the Thrive by Design way, or the Unlock Your Design way. So if you're curious to discover that way of bridging the gap, I would say come to the masterclass, and then you'll have a little bit more ground for, further decisions of if you want to come into our universe, even in a more intense and kind of deep way.
Yeah. Yay. Okay. Well, I hope to see you in the masterclass on Thursday, and register with the link that we'll provide, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Bye.